Hello, Bobby Torres of Frightbox Recording here. So the question is, are you currently using amp sims within your productions? If you are, and you plan on mixing your amp sims, make sure you follow what I'm about to show you in this tutorial. Let's discuss. So before we begin, I just want to let you know that if you're a musician who records their own music, this is the absolute best time in history. With tools like MIDI drums and amp sims and inexpensive DAWs, you can achieve amazing 100% professional results right in your bedroom, garage, or even living room. The downside is so many people make the same mistakes over and over and over again when using these tools. And this is why I've put together a MIDI drums and amp sims production checklist. In this simple, straightforward PDF guide, I outline the common mistakes that we all make when using MIDI drums and amp sims and how to remedy these issues and get right to achieving better results within your home studio with the gear you currently have. The PDF guide is absolutely free. You can download it right now by clicking the link below in this video subscription. Now, when it comes to amp sims specifically, there's one thing that I see over and over and over and over again when people send me their music to mix. And here's what it is. It's very simple. People not committing their amp sims to audio before the mixing phase. And this also goes for people that mix their own music. This could be you. Where people will start mixing their track while their amp sims are live in the session. And this can result in a bunch of different issues, which I want to outline in this short tutorial and how to remedy this very basic issue. First, let me bring up why you want to commit and print your tones in the first place. 3 primary reasons. Number 1, you want to free up CPU in your DAW. These days, for some unknown reason, amp sims take up so much CPU, and once you have a second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth guitar layer, your DAW might be struggling. Committing these tones to audio, just as if you recorded a real amp in the first place, will help free up CPU usage, which is important. The second reason why you should be committing your amp sim tones before the mixing process is simple. It will prevent you from endlessly tweaking your amp sims. Remember, tweaking tones should be in the production and recording phase, not the mixing phase. And the third and final reason why you should be committing your tone is when you send your mix, if you want to have a professional mixing engineer mix your track. Throughout my career, I've had so many sessions sent to me that just contain DI tracks with no printed tones. And sometimes people aren't even aware that if you send a session with an amp sim on it, and if the engineer doesn't have that specific amp sim, we don't have the tone. You want to send your producer or engineer or mixer both the clean DI and the committed amp sim tone, especially if you like the tone that you dialed in at home. So with all that being said, in this simple tutorial, I'm going to demonstrate exactly how I go about this process within my own DAW. Now, I'm using Pro Tools, but you can do this in any DAW. I'm going to show you how I commit my tones and prep my session for mixing. Now, right here, I have a production that was actually recorded out of order. I've recorded all of the guitar and bass tracks to MIDI drums, but up next after this, real drums will be recorded. But right now, if we look in my session, I just have a bunch of DI tracks. And the tones that you'll be hearing are coming from an old amp sim called the TSC Audio X50, which I really like the tone of. But again, I'm ready to move on to the next phase of the production. I'm done messing with tones, and I want to commit all of my tones. So I'm working with files that look just like a mic'd up amp. So in other words, I'm not going to be tempted to go in and change out the impulse response or mess with my pedal chain or the EQ settings on the amp. I'm committing right now to what I have so I could again move on to the next phase of the production. So before I commit my tones, let's just take a listen to what we have. Okay, just a solid metal guitar tone. I'm happy with this, and I want to use this in the final production. So I have 2 rhythm guitars and some lead overdub tracks. Very simple, 2 rhythm guitars, a chorus lead, and 3 additional lead guitar overdubs. So again, I've already gone in and dialed in a tone that I'm happy with. And if you look at my tracks, I have the amp sim And then I have some EQ. Now this EQ is not final. This is just here for my tracking template. And I do not want to commit the EQ. That's another mistake that people make. They'll commit their tones with the EQ plugin embedded into the file. You only want to commit the amp sim. Again, think of it sort of like working with real amp tracks. You have just the raw tone that you can then EQ later. So I'm a very simple guy. I like to do things in one go. So I'm gonna highlight all, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these tracks. I'm gonna right click on my amp sims. And right now, all of my amp sims are being committed to audio. And the great thing is I'm still gonna have my DI track above my printed tracks in case I ever have to go back and utilize the clean DIs. They're still in my session. Let's take a listen to that same exact section that we listened to before. Okay, the only difference now is we are hearing the printed tones. And also all of my EQs are still on the tracks because I printed only the amp sims. Now again, I like to keep my sessions super organized because I like to mix quickly and I like to record quickly in the studio. I don't like to take forever. And because of that, I like to keep all of my tracks in order. So what I prefer to do is keep my printed tones right below all of my DI tracks. So now just moving the printed tones below the DI track. So if you look in the session, all of the corresponding DIs, which are now currently inactive, are sitting alongside the printed version of the amp sim that's on the DI track that is again inactive and freeing up CPU in my DAW. Super straightforward, super simple, but I see people skipping this step constantly. It's actually one of the most common things that I see when people not only send me their mixes to inspect, but also when working with clients that record out of their home studios that send me their sessions to potentially mix. And I can't mix a guitar tone that doesn't exist, especially if the client liked the tone that they had, unless I have the exact same plugins. And nowadays there are so many different amp sims out there. It's very rare that someone has all or most of the ones that are available on the market. So I'm curious to know, do you take this step and commit your amp sim tones before mixing? Or do you kind of, go into the mixing phase with all of your amp sims live in your production? Let me know by leaving a comment in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your opinion. And again, if you're looking to break these bad habits that so many of us fall into when it comes to amp sims and MIDI drums, you can have direct access for absolutely free to my MIDI drums and amp sims production checklist. There's a link below in this video's description. If you found this video helpful, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And do not forget to click the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I upload weekly videos on all things metal rock production. Until next time, happy mixing.